recognize Mr. Walberg from Michigan for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks to the panel for being here, including our colleague, who's still our colleague, just on a different committee. One of the biggest drivers of the cost of higher education is the fact that graduate students have no limit on borrowing. Yet studies show many master's degrees do not have an equal return on investment. In fact, one study found approximately 40% provided a negative return on investment. Mr. Pulsifer, you mentioned in your testimony that your institution has focused on delivering a valuable education to its students by focusing on degrees and certifications that lead to in-demand careers. That's interesting. While keeping costs low for students, that's interesting as well. Can you elaborate a little bit more on how you create these programs specifically while keeping the costs low?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Representative Walberg. We start with the fundamental principle that education has to be a path to opportunity. And so we start from that opportunity and work backwards, if you will. We actually directly identify those skills and requirements that are needed in the workforce, particularly the future workforce. That can come from partnerships with a company called Lightcast, who can actually do a great library and catalog of all the skills that are needed. But once we identify kind of macro demand out there, we then start working directly with employers and associations that represent that topical or kind of that field of study and domain of expertise, such that we're gaining that input directly into the design and development of our curriculum, so that we know that fundamentally that when our students complete those programs, that they're actually ready and possess the skills and competencies that are needed to be successful in the workforce. This is why 98% of our employers are hiring WG graduates again, and they rate them as highly skilled or highly prepared for the workforce, as do the students and graduates themselves. Now, as it relates to making it affordable, we have something that addresses both the tuition and the cost of completing the program, but also can accelerate the time to complete it. We simply, first and foremost, keep our tuition costs at under $4,000 for a bachelor's degree per a 6-month term. But for the competency-based approach, it actually allows individuals to go at a pace that's right for them, such that in that 6 months, students can complete as many courses as they are able. We do not track seat time in the course. What we track is competency to that, such that on average, our graduates of bachelor's degrees are completing in 2.5 years at a cost of less than $20,000 total.
Well, that's a savings. If it produces the quality, and you've indicated that it has by result of what the employers are saying, I appreciate that. Let me move on another track, parental involvement in the education of their children, and I see that as good. With all due respect, I don't see that as anything other than how it ought to be. It's paramount to a student's success. However, in recent years, we've seen a push by teachers' unions and school districts, sadly, to exclude parents from the education of their children. This is why I recently introduced the Protect Kids Act with Senator Tim Scott. Ms. Gentles, you noted in your written testimony the harmful impacts of ideological indoctrination in some of our schools, especially on young children. Do you believe this is driving a wedge between parents and their own children?
Absolutely, and it's designed to. The idea of telling children that their parents...
It's designed to?
Yes, when we're talking about gender ideology specifically, there's an intention there to tell children things that are biologically false, that a child could be born in the wrong body, or a child might be born a boy, a girl, both, or neither, and then instruct the child that if their parent questions them on this, if they bring that information home, that their parent is a bigot and that their parent is hateful, and if the child chooses to choose one of the 70+ gender identities that are taught in school, and if the parent questions that, then the parent must want them dead. There's a lot that's always pushed out there about suicide, or the parent will kick them out. The child will be homeless. So there's absolutely a wedge that's being driven. And then when we talk about gender support plans, that's intentionally hiding information. So it creates a secret between the school and the child that they're keeping from the parent. That's a very clear wedge.
Yeah, whether there's a disagreement or not, to keep secrets causes great concerns. Would you say that it would be important then if schools do this intentionally keeping those secrets, they should lose their federal funding?
Actions have to be taken. It has to be sent in a very clear message to districts that and to schools that this is not acceptable. And so we see state legislation that's addressing this, and I understand that you and Senator Scott have introduced legislation as well. Those messages have to be sent very clearly that gender support plans, keeping secrets from parents, pushing children down a path to medical transition must stop. There must be a consequence.
Thank you. I yield.